just realizing I never set up a folder for 2025 reviews. What am I doing? Help me, because I can't help myself. I'm thirsty. You know, this used to have my name on it. I chronically used to not drink. I forgot my rings. I'm not getting up to get them either. My hands just feel naked. But what was I saying? Oh, I chronically used to just not drink enough water. So one thing that I was like, no, I'm determined this year. I have to drink enough water in a day. Just chronically dehydrated. I think most people are chronically dehydrated. And it's like, well, dang. Why am I so thirsty? Because you're not drinking enough water. Anyway, I'm convinced that if I start drinking enough water, I might see some differences, especially in my skin. Like, I'm convinced that if I drink enough water over time, I'll see differences, improvements, especially in my skin, because I don't know what her love language is. You know, sometimes she loves me, sometimes my face hates me. Hi, my name is Alana. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And on this channel, we review books. This book review is a different one for me because, go ahead on and stage that. It's more in the realm of sci-fi, and it's The Employees by Olga, is it Ravn? Ravn? R-A-V-N? I believe she's Dutch. I think it was translated from the Danish. So, and I mean, I've seen this book floating around on mainly Instagram over the past few years. I mean, because the cover is good, right? It's an eye-catching cover. It's a slim little volume here, but I hesitated picking it up for a while because I don't typically read sci-fi-esque type narratives. I'm just not into sci-fi. I'm not saying I don't like it. It's just I don't gravitate towards it. Even though you could classify Q1084 by Murakami as a sci-fi-esque novel. Don't get me wrong. I was also raised on like the original Star Wars, so I appreciate a good sci-fi. But it's just not something that I'm going to gravitate towards. All of that to say, I'm 5 minutes in and I've said absolutely nothing. But the reason why this narrative I was interested in this narrative is because, one, it's short. So I can dabble in a genre that may be a little bit out of my comfort zone. And I don't feel like I would have wasted too much time investing in something. I cannot speak today. Maybe I'm dehydrated. I wouldn't have spent so much time on something that maybe I wouldn't have liked in the long run. I feel so weird without my rings. So this narrative, it was also, okay, so the length is one reason why I picked it up. And also I'm a firm believer if something like a book in particular is drawing you in for some reason, like, oh, I think I want to read that, go ahead on and give it a try. If you liked it, you liked it. You had a good experience. If you didn't like it, then you learned from it. Oh, I realized this isn't my cup of tea, and you continue to refine your taste. I'm just a firm believer in just pick it up. You don't always have to pick up a book and want it to be a 4 or 5 star read. At least I don't. Whether I end up hating a book or liking a book, I never feel like it's wasted time. Very rarely do I feel like it's wasted time. Maybe it's more accurate to say. Because again, I just continue to learn what I do and do not like. And if I end up really liking something that was out of my comfort zone, I've just expanded my reading options, if that makes sense. Let's dive in. I have talked way too much. What you call made is your own work. What you call found, discovered is your own point of origin. So, The Employees is a quirky sci-fi I would call it novella. And there is a group of humans and humanoids aboard what's called the 6,000 ship. And tensions, I'm not even going to get too much into like the world of this because that's just not how I'm going to focus this review. I kind of don't care about the world of it. And I just don't care. That's just, again, not what I'm going to choose to focus this review on. Anyway, tensions arise amongst the humans and the humanoids, and a mutiny takes place, resulting in a narrative that's constructed from crew testimonies. So the author uses this strange dynamic to highlight the existential dread of the modern employee, which is why I kind of picked up this book in the first place. I love an existential narrative that also looks at how we now work, this cog that we often describe as today's modern work, the cog and wheel as what we call or describe. I'm really struggling to speak today. Today's modern work culture, but also brings to the forefront this strange dynamic that we now have with machines and technology. We are in the world of phones in our pockets that are as powerful as computers, and we're being tracked and our data is being used and sold, and AI and what have you. So I said that this is constructed as true testimonies. The narrative's constructed, I am really struggling to speak, as statements, witness statements, or crew testimonials, crew statements. Again, I didn't find this book to be, I'll get into it. I wasn't too keen on it. It was okay for me, and I'll get into why, but it was easy to get through whether I felt like I liked it or not. So modern work culture, again, this is a theme in the book, has evolved into something that has become incredibly time consuming. And for many, it's suffocating. I think most of us can relate to this struggle that arises between work-life balance. And more, I feel like we live in a work culture where we are expected, not all of us, but we are expected to dedicate so much time to work than we are even willing to give, want to give, or we're capable of giving, because we're just like, I don't live to work. I have a motto: I don't live to work, I work to live. But depending on the company that you work for, it can be very, very time consuming and draining. And you're like, your life is like, I get up, I go to work, repeat, get up, go to work, repeat, get up, go to work, repeat. And then you have a weekend, hopefully if you don't have to work over the weekend, to try to squeeze in life. And it's soul sucking. I'm starting to feel disloyal toward the organization, and it pains me because there's no place for me other than inside the organization. How can I say no to you, the people who gave me my job? But you could just try to understand that betraying my friend in that situation was more abhorrent to me than betraying my workplace. Again, this loyalty that many people are expected to have, I have to pop my knee is hurting, to their employer, but your employer ain't your people. You know what I mean? I have another phrase: work is at work and home is at home, and ne'er shall the two meet. Okay. So in this narrative, the author uses these humanoids in this workplace, in this work crew. Again, it's a blend. We have humans and humanoids. And the humanoids, they look human, obviously, to highlight how a non-human workforce doesn't have these tensions, doesn't have this existential crisis in the workplace, because they're not dedicated to anything else. They were created to work, whereas human beings were these multifaceted beings who have hobbies and interests and memories, and there are other things we may want to pursue that have nothing else to do with work. There are many people who decide to give up jobs in corporate America or whatever that make 6-7 figures, and they're like, this is soul sucking. I want to go live on a farm somewhere and live off the land and have some chickens. Whereas, essentially a robot doesn't have that tension. So in other words, us poor little human beings, we're too needy and changeable. and we don't suit the needs of an organization because, we're going to have a higher turnover rate pursuing our own interests than something that's not human at all. I've never not been employed. I was made for work. My human coworker sometimes talks about not wanting to work, and then he'll say something odd and rather silly. What is it he says now? There's more to a person than the work they do, or a person is more than just their work. What you need to produce a humanoid worker, apart from the right lab equipment and biological material, is 18 months. After a 2-month training period, they're ready for employment. That gives us a total production time of only 2 years. In their design, they look like humans inside and out, apart from the reproductive organs, which we found ethically and unjustifiable to duplicate. And think about it. So obviously the author here is making a point. It only takes 2 months to 2 years to get a humanoid fully ready for the workforce. But then when you have a human being, that human being has to go through the conception process, the birthing process. Then they have to grow up. Then they have to get educated. It's at a minimum, depending on where you live in the world and your legal age to work. In the United States, depending on the state, you can get, you're not entering the workforce until 15 years old. Sometimes a little younger, again, depending where you are. But you don't get them until they're a teenager. That's 14, 15, 16 years, right? But in a humanoid in this context, in 2 years, they're ready to go. This is starting to feel like iRobot. I'm not going to get into the tensions too much between the humans and the humanoids. I feel like it's a bit of a spoiler, but there is, again, a mutiny, and it culminates into one event, which is why we have all these statements from both humans and humanoids alike. And one thing I do think is really clever here is that you can tell the difference between, even though you don't get names, you just get statement number 153 or statement number 75. You can tell without any names being mentioned if it's a human or a humanoid by the language, which is very well done. So you do have these tensions between these two entities. And so with this hostility, I still think that it's interesting because we all work with people we may not necessarily get on with, human or otherwise. And so you could even look at this as a way of saying, it doesn't matter if you have a fully human work crew or a blend or a humanoid, some personalities just don't get along. And you're going to have blow-ups at the workplace. Why should I work with someone I don't like? What good could possibly come from socializing with them? Oh man, it's funny. I don't share the opinion of many of my coworkers that the only real solution should be to discontinue the human section of the crew. Maybe the humans are that very element of chaos that keeps the world alive. Or maybe we really can do without them. I don't know if there's anything more you can teach us. Ouch. Again, that's a little question in this world that we're living in now, when technology is becoming so advanced, it's replacing humans. Again, iRobot. And the ethics behind that. Like, who wants to be replaced? And to be looked at as like replaceable with something that doesn't have feelings or emotions, right? What's interesting in the employees is that these humanoids still evolve, though. They may not evolve through through the experiences that we as humans evolve. Was that even good grammar? Probably not. But you get what I'm saying. Again, I'm trying to warm up. Whenever I haven't been recording for a long time and I sit down, the first video, I'm stuttering, I'm all over the place. Nobody cares. We're not here for perfection. But they still evolve in their own way. Maybe it's a more logical type of evolution, just through reasoning. But it does give rise to the question, if technology and machines adapt as they continue to learn, do machines and technology continue to adapt as they continue to learn? What are the consequences? We already know this, though. There is an answer to this. We've seen it with AI. The more you feed into AI and chatbots and AI-fueled entities, if you will, the more information they're fed, the more they learn. I saw this one segment. It's at least a couple years old now. It was this robot that they were teaching. I think it was out of Google. They were teaching how to play soccer, football. And it was learning as it made errors, or if it missed the goal, it would correct itself and it could make the goal the next time. And so it's still learning and it's becoming better and better. Again, think of iRobot. Eventually, Vicky was able to learn so much that she started saying, my logic is undeniable. My logic is undeniable. And then you have this robot takeover because at this point, in a way, it was smarter than a human being. So I keep mentioning iRobot. So if this is kind of in your jam, I like iRobot. Actually, iRobot is an actual modern retelling, I think, of Frankenstein. But you could read Frankenstein. This just came to me. The employees and watch iRobot and get an interesting conversation going on between those three. This may be crude, but I've already said I don't necessarily share your way of seeing things here. Maybe that's why you think of me as an offender. Half human, flesh and technology to living. Because in this story, the humanoids do start to think and reason outside of their program. Tell me, did you plant this perception in me, or is it part of the program? Or did the image come up from inside me of its own accord? I know without a doubt that I'm real. I may have been made, but now I'm making myself. I would say definitely read Frankenstein along with this. So in this regard, the human members of the crew do highlight what sets them apart from their humanoid counterparts. So in other words, what makes up the organic human experience that no machine or technology will ever be able to emulate? I've got nothing against death, nothing against rotting away. What frightens me is what doesn't die and never changes form. That's why I'm proud of being human, and I carry the certainty of my future death with honor. We're drawn by each other's unhappiness. It pulls us towards each other, and as if we were caught in a funnel. And at the bottom of the funnel, we sit and whisper. Remember when it rained at the beach, how when you paddled out, the sea was warmer than the rain? Remember the bananas with cream topping? Remember being in the hospital? Remember fresh strawberries and concerts? Remember that TV show? We talk a lot about the weather. All of us miss the weather, which surprised us. It's as if the only thing we can bear to have in common is weather conditions on a lost planet. And people have asked this question. Is it a philosophical question? I think you could, especially with AI starting to emulate music and creating digital art. You could throw into AI or a chat bot or Google Chat, whatever, and say, Google Chat, Google AI system, and say, write me a poem about this, and it'll write a poem. But I personally don't like AI. Sue me. I don't like it. I'm not saying that it doesn't ever have benefits. I am not personally a fan because for a myriad of reasons, I don't like it when it emulates art. I think that, again, this is what the author is getting at. Human beings can create music and art based on experience. And that what this author is getting at, we have memories. We have our own unique way of functioning in the world. We each, even though I was raised in the same household with my parents, I'm still different from them in a different way because I'm my own human being with my own way of looking at things. And that is going to impact how I analyze a book, for example. Or if I were to ever choose to write a novel, that's going to impact what I may or may not choose to write about and why. If I was an artist and I wanted to have my own little way of my own unique artistic style, that comes from me as a human being. And a robot or AI is just mimicking other things. Is it really unique? But also, and this might be a bit of an aside, remember before AI really started, and it's not even done advancing yet, which is creepy. You always had to be careful on the internet when it came to making sure something wasn't photoshopped or tweaked in any way, filters, etc. It's getting harder and harder to tell. The AI has some quirks, and if you really slow down and pay attention, you're like, this is generated. This is not an actual photograph. it's getting harder and harder to tell as this stuff continues, this technology continues to improve. And I feel really bad for young children growing up with it and they can't discern the two because it's mirroring the real world so closely. It's creepy. Um, and what also is scary to me is how I look in comments for stuff that I can tell is clearly AI generated, and you see people in the comments buying it. They believe it's real. And I'm thinking, are you that naive? And I don't care what anybody says, AI will never be as beautiful as nature. Never. Anyway, let's wrap this up. This was definitely a read outside of my comfort zone. Again, I'm not the biggest sci-fi fan. I just don't gravitate towards it. Does that mean, though, there hasn't been sci-fi that I've disliked or what? No, I love Q1084. It's sci-fi, fantasy, unrequited love, romance. It's not really a romance, but there's definitely a romantic relationship in that novel. I enjoyed Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse wasn't my favorite novel, but it's sci-fi and it had some existential questions in there that I did appreciate. It's just, I do like Star Wars, the original movies. But again, all of that to say, it's just not something that I gravitate towards in my literature. So I admit that while reading this, I got bored for such a short novel. This is just over 100 pages, maybe 120 something pages. And overall, I personally could not wait for this to be over. Bear it in mind, though, this is personal experience. I think this is well written. It's well constructed. I think it's unique, clever, and quirky. I really like the existential themes and the commentary on our modern work culture and technology and how that is being, because you can apply these things to real life, to our modern life. And that is what the themes are what kept me reading. It's just not my cup of tea genre wise. I definitely didn't hate it. It's just not my preference. But there is definitely an audience for this, and I do not regret reading it. It was just not a favorite for me. But I'm actually going to keep it on my shelf. Sometimes when I read a book and it's just not my cup of tea, I didn't like it, I rated this a 2.5 out of 5. Usually when I rate a book that low, I give it away. It goes in the giveaway pile. I'm actually going to keep this one because it's very well executed, and it goes in nicely with other books on my shelf that tackle these topics, just maybe from different angles. And I have another book review that I'm going to post the following week after this goes live, hard copy, which is new, and similar themes but different angle, and that works a little bit better for me. So I definitely think The Employees has an audience. I think it was well executed. It just wasn't my personal cup of tea. And sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes a book can be well executed, but if it's just not for you, it's not for you. It doesn't mean that the author didn't do a good job. So that is it for me with this review. Have you read The Employees? Did you like it? It's very Instagrammable, the cover is. And if so, please leave thoughts, comments below. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram where I get up to more bookish shenanigans. I post all of my book content there first. But more often than not, I'm actually posting goofy stuff in Instagram stories because I can. And it has nothing to do with books. I just like a good laugh. And with that, I'll sign out. Bye.